Welcome to Fan Fave with Katrina.
Fan Fave with Katrina.
It's time to talk pop culture.
Did you miss me? I'm Katrina, this is Fan Fave, and I am so excited to be back. I took a bit of a hiatus from making podcast episodes and even posting content because I just had a lot going on, and it's so important to me that everything that I do for this brand is done right, and I just didn't feel like I had the time to fully pursue this like I wanted to, but now I am back, and I'm so excited to keep bringing you all the latest in pop culture. That's movies, television, music, theater, anything in the entertainment realm. I'm your girl to chat about things with, and it's all because more than anything else, I am a fan first. And that's why I also want to hear from you. So stay tuned for opportunities to join me, both on this podcast and on social media. Now, today, the day that I'm releasing this podcast is August 1st, and it's actually a very special day, and there's a reason why I wanted to relaunch the Fan Fave podcast on today. On this day a year ago, I originally launched Fan Fave. As someone who has been so passionate about pop culture my entire life, I started this podcast to share my love with the world, but I also had this goal of interacting with and creating a community for fans to share what they love. And while I took a little bit of a break, I am just super proud of the work that I have been able to do on this podcast so far, and I am so excited to be back and to be able to do this again. So, since it's been a while since we last chatted, I just wanted to use this episode to catch up with you all and do a pop recap talking about all the pop culture and entertainment things that I have been into since we last spoke on this podcast, and also a little bit of what I've been up to. So first off, I am now a college grad. I think that was a big part of why I actually went on hiatus with the podcast because senior year was a lot. But guys, I am so excited because I am now an alumni of New York University. I absolutely loved my time at NYU, especially because it provided me with such easy access to so many forms of entertainment in the city. Now, don't worry, I always kept up with my academics, but living in New York City and being able to just go to so many Broadway shows, movie premieres, special concerts, and TV tapings made for the college experience of my dreams. I mean, I literally took a grad pick with the Jonas Brothers. I got to work as an intern in both music and television. I will never forget my time as an intern with NBC and for The Tonight Show. Also, being at NYU, I got to study and meet so many talented creatives in this industry, and the school itself just does so much for those in the arts, so I absolutely loved my time there. So guys, after I graduated from college, I had to celebrate big, and I thought there's no better way to celebrate graduating from NYU than by seeing NYU's 2022 honorary doctorate recipient, Taylor Swift, in concert. That's right, I got to go to the Eras Tour, and honestly, it made my whole year. I was at MetLife Night 1, which arguably is still one of the most iconic nights of the entire tour. Even though the concert was technically in New Jersey, pretty much everyone counted it as the New York show, including me. I dressed up as the track Welcome to New York off of my favorite Taylor album, 1989. And if you're wondering how I did this, I literally dressed up as the Statue of Liberty. This was my second time seeing Taylor, and I have to say, she is hands down one of my favorites of all time to see live. When you go to one of her concerts, you're not just getting the show, but an entire experience. There are Swifties outside of the stadium tailgating. Everyone is all dressed up in costumes related to her albums and eras. People are trading friendship bracelets, even to the celebrities down in the VIP tents. It's just such a fun time. The setlist is a journey throughout Taylor's music for 3 hours, and I just think it's such a creative concept for someone who has such an iconic and expansive catalog of songs. And guys, Taylor brings the theatrics and effects to make the stadium show feel full and interactive. Sometimes I love just looking around at the crowd and all of the synchronized light-up bracelets dancing along to the beat. I think my favorite eras to hear live were Reputation and Folklore, but also nothing beats being able to see Taylor perform 22 live when you're actually 22 years old. So that was just a great experience that 11-year-old me, when it first came out, never could have imagined. Pretty much from the start of the night, Taylor teased that she had a bunch of surprises in store, and she totally did. First, she brings out all of her dancers, and then she announces the release of the music video for her Karma remix with Ice Spice. But then she tells us that we get to see it first. So we got to watch the premiere of the music video on the big screen, which was so cool. Then later during the surprise song section, Taylor sang Maroon live for the first time ever, and she brought out Jack Antonoff to sing Getaway Car with her, which I thought was the best thing ever because it was the perfect callback to the scene of them writing Getaway Car in the Miss Americana documentary. To close the show, Taylor sung Karma, and then she actually did what I had been hoping would happen all night. She brought out Ice Spice to perform the remix with her live for the first time ever. I truly had the best experience I could have ever asked for in attending this Eras Tour show, and it was definitely a highlight of my whole year, so expect to hear me constantly talking about it on this podcast. Now, I've also seen a ton of Broadway shows since we last spoke. I'll just run through my quick thoughts on the shows that I saw that have closed already, probably by the time you're listening, and then I have a couple of shows that are currently still running that I'm going to share some more in-depth thoughts on. So yes, I saw Bad Cinderella before it closed, and truthfully, I did not think it was that bad. It had its moments, but it was camp and did not deserve being made fun of in the way that it did. To be honest, I really thought that the prince, played by Jordan Dobson, was fantastic, and I did actually enjoy a few of the musical numbers. I also saw Parade, which is hands down one of the best productions I have ever seen on Broadway. It's such an important story, and I was just blown away by the talent, the staging. Everything about it was perfect, truly no notes. Like, I wish this could run on Broadway forever. Now, a show that was absolutely not perfect, Peter Pan Goes Wrong, but that's 100% the point of that show. The entire thing is essentially a joke where everything is supposed to mess up and go wrong during a production of Peter Pan. So it's a show within a show, essentially. I actually got front row rush tickets for this show, and it was probably the most fun I've ever had at a Broadway show. I got to see it with Neil Patrick Harris, which, if anyone remembers, How I Met Your Mother is actually one of my favorite shows of all time, and Neil did not disappoint in the show. I even got to meet him afterwards at the stage door, and I talked to him about Harry Styles, which was very on brand for me. Now, for the shows that are still open, I went to the first preview of Once Upon a One More Time. For those that don't know, this is a jukebox musical with only Britney Spears music, and it's also based on fairy tale princess stories. I have a lot of thoughts about this show, and since I went to the first preview, I have heard that things have changed, but my general opinion is that this is a show that you see for fun. It's not to be taken seriously or critiqued in a genuine way. I loved pretty much everything about it except for the plot. And I think that sometimes can be a thread with jukebox musicals, especially ones that are not like about a specific person or their story. They tend to just sometimes fall into a trap of trying to fit the plot around certain songs, and sometimes this works well and they poke fun at that, like how a show like & Juliet does it, but in other times I find that the plot kind of suffers a bit. In general, the show is about this world where all of the princesses and fairy tale characters are working for a male narrator who tells them when and how to perform their stories. I don't want to go into too many details or spoil anything, but essentially, as described by the production, Once Upon a One More Time follows Cinderella as she leads a group of her fairy tale friends that include The Little Mermaid, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Rapunzel, and the Princess and the Pea, which, side note, I had no clue who that was. And they go on a quest to rewrite their stories and redefine their happily ever after. So it's essentially a feminism journey, but I just felt like the storyline fell into a lot of cliches, and the second act's resolution felt very, very rushed. But I have heard that they made some changes to that, so that might not even be a valid complaint anymore. As for the good, I do think it's an extremely creative concept, and they definitely had fun with the characters and dialogue. I thought the casting was phenomenal. I was really impressed with everyone. The musical numbers were a highlight for me. It was just high energy, big choreographed numbers. Seriously, it had some of my favorite choreo that I've seen on Broadway. I would go back for the musical numbers alone, so that's what I mean when I say the book not being up to par isn't a deal breaker for me. Now, the main princess in the show is Cinderella, but I have to shout out Aisha Jackson, who played Snow White. She was an absolute standout to me, as well as Justin Guarini as the Prince Charming. His character was just so funny, and he really carried some great numbers. I actually heard that they added a new song for him sometime during previews after I saw it, which is an absolute genius move because I definitely wanted more from him and his character. I felt like they included a good range of Britney songs in the show as well, like not only her hits like Oops, I Did It Again or Toxic, but also some fan favorites and pretty recent tracks. I was kind of surprised to see them do Make Me, her song with G-Eazy, because that's a really recent song that I loved, but I wasn't sure of its popularity, and it really fit in really well. The show ends with a huge dance party, and we got light up bracelets that sync to the music, and yeah, I just had so much fun at this show. I also saw Shucked on Broadway, and I just want to lead by saying that this was the show that I actually wanted to win Best Musical at the Tonys. Kimberly Akimbo was fantastic as well, and I posted a review/vlog video on social media about that show back in November, but Shucked was one of those that just resonated with me a lot more because it was just so much fun. I think with both Shucked and Kimberly Akimbo, actually, it's totally easy for people to go in and either really like it or really dislike it, and that's because they are both riddled with silly one-liners. Kimberly Akimbo reads a lot like a sitcom, and while Shucked doesn't have as much as the sitcom feel, sometimes it felt like every other line was pretty much a joke or a pun. So if you get annoyed by that kind of thing, or you prefer something a bit more traditional or dramatic in that sense, Shucked probably isn't for you. But if you want to laugh a ton like I did, I'm telling you this show is hilarious. Now, I know a lot of you may have heard about this show and have gone, what is this show about? Because all of the marketing for this show simply says, well, it's about corn. And I'm here to break the plot down for you and say, yes, it's about corn, but it's also about love and the importance of community. Plot-wise, it actually kind of reminded me of The Music Man, or a comparison that I've never heard anyone say, Moana, a little bit. And let me explain. The story takes place in Cobb County, and they are, of course, known for growing and eating all things corn. Well, one day they wake up and something is wrong with the corn, so our main character, Maisie, she goes and she leaves her small town, which no one ever does, and she goes to Tampa and meets this con man who tells her he can help her out. And then, yeah, things happen. Keeping it spoiler free, you guys. But I thought the plot was a lot of fun, pretty simple and easy to follow, yet entertaining. As for the music, I really liked a lot of the songs. It's a soundtrack that I find myself sometimes going back to listen to, which isn't as common for me with a lot of the shows I see. I was expecting a lot more of a country vibe, but it almost felt more folk and maybe slightly pop. Alex Newell was a standout for me here, and they ended up winning the Tony for Best Performance by a Featured Actor in a Musical this year, which was very well deserved. There's also a fun little twist at the end that maybe really isn't a big twist or anything, but I wasn't expecting it, and I thought it was really cute. And if you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, for my recommendations, if you love Britney Spears and or princesses, want a fun night out, and are looking for big, flashy dance numbers, go see Once Upon a One More Time. If you're looking for a little bit less of a spectacle, a story that reminds you of classic musicals but with a fun twist, and laugh out loud comedy, go see Shucked. Now, as for music, Demi Lovato announced a new album, and I have to talk about it because I'm just so excited. It's such a genius idea, but they are releasing a new project called Revamped. Essentially, Demi is taking a catalog of their older music and reimagining them as rock songs. The Sorry Not Sorry rock version featuring Slash is so good. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it. I just cannot wait to hear the rest of these songs in the rock genre because I feel like a lot of their music sounds like it naturally could sway that way from the start. I'd still say that my favorite Demi album is Don't Forget. Like, top to bottom, that's a masterpiece. And it's more on the rock side too, so it's almost as if Demi is going back to their roots by doing this album. So yeah, it's out in September, and I cannot wait for Revamped. Some other things I'm also streaming right now, the new Barbie album. It's just a collection of so many great artists. I really love the Nicki Minaj and Ice Spice collaboration, Barbie World. but also Charlie XCX has a really great track on there, Speed Drive, and even Ryan Gosling with I'm Just Ken, which, side note, I'm probably late, but I just found out that he used to be in a rock band called Dead Man's Bones, which I thought was pretty cool. I also have to shout out the newest track from Troye Sivan. It's called Rush, and it's just such a captivating song, especially with all that dancing in the video. Like, you guys should go check it out, and also all of the TikToks of everyone trying to do those dances on TikTok. It's so much fun. Lastly, if you haven't heard, Hollywood is in shambles right now. The writers and now the actors are on strike. In solidarity with Hollywood's essential workers and as recommended by the Screen Actors Guild, I will not be discussing movies or television shows produced by struck companies until a fair deal is reached and the strikes are resolved. But don't worry, there are still so many pop culture topics that we can discuss, anything from music to theater, sports, history, and even food. So stay tuned, I have so much in store for all listeners of Fan Fave. As a reminder, this podcast is a hub for all things pop culture. Keep listening to Fan Fave for recaps and breakdowns of the latest in entertainment news, music, theater, and more with commentary for fans from a fan. Now, because this is a shorter welcome back episode, I will have a slightly longer full-length episode coming at you next Tuesday. And then after that, Fan Fave is going to stay a bi-weekly podcast for now. So you can expect podcast episodes from Fan Fave every other Tuesday. You can also stay in touch and join the Fan Fave community on social media. I'll also be posting additional video content and vlogs from my many adventures and events that I attend in the entertainment world. I'm on pretty much every platform, including Twitter, which may or may not be X by the time you're listening to this, but no one is calling it that. I'm also on TikTok, Instagram, and even Threads. It's at FanFaveMedia everywhere. So connect with me because I want to interact and hear from all of you, my fellow fans of pop culture. So with that, I officially welcome you back to Fan Fave.